Hey, Ryan, welcome to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey, we are excited to talk with you and get an update on AJ McCarron. Obviously, you cover the Bills daily, and we were so excited to see him develop because we'd watched him do so many great things here in Tuscaloosa, being a part of 3 championships teams and the contributions and the records that he held here. A lot of us are pulling for AJ McCarron. Give us the update as camp opened up a few days ago.
Yeah, I think AJ McCarron is holding his own here at Bills camp. I think he's been very consistent throughout the start of camp until now. You can tell that this isn't his first rodeo. He's been through many camps. The Bills don't have a very experienced quarterback room. McCarron obviously has the most experience of the group. Nathan Peterman's in his second year, and Josh Allen's a rookie. So you can definitely tell the difference between the three in that regard. Shown very good accuracy on short to intermediate passes. But the only big knock against him is he's been a little bit indecisive at times, sometimes holds the ball a little bit too long. But I think he's looked pretty good overall for the Bills.
What do you think that when you look at this organization, what are they looking for in A.J. McCarron? Because they turn around and draft Josh Allen. What are their expectations of A.J. McCarron?
Well, I think they're looking for a guy that can start the season at quarterback, and if he plays well, I don't think they would ever pull McCarron out of the lineup if he is doing well in that role. I think they don't want to rush Josh Allen into action. I know he's the number 7 overall pick, but they said they have a plan in place for him. So I think that the plan is, hey, let's see what all 3 of them do at training camp. And right now, like I said, McCarron's been very consistent, very steady for the Bills. I think if he shows that consistency in the preseason, carries that over, and we're not too far away from the first preseason game, then I think he ultimately has the best chance of being the Week 1 starter for Buffalo. Call it a gut feeling right now, but I do think that McCarron will be Buffalo's Week 1 starter.
When I was looking at some percentages, I think you guys were throwing up there as being more consistent. He's just a guy that he's a field general. I mean, that's the way that we watched him here in Tuscaloosa. He's very accurate with the football. I think not included today, he was somewhere in the 70 percentile when we talk about just completing passes and being Mr. Consistent there.
Yeah, absolutely. Before today, I think I read that too. He's around 75% in terms of completions. Like I said, hitting those short and intermediate passes really well. He saw a blitz one play, and he dropped it off for a nice completion. So there's some things that he's doing really, really well on. Today, all 3 quarterbacks struggled a little bit in 11-on-11 work just because I think the O-line had a bad day today. Between the 3 of them, there were 11 sacks taken, so that kind of tells you how the offensive line fared against defensive pressure today. So I do think, though, that McCarron, like you said, he's a field general. He's not going to be – he doesn't have the Josh Allen arm. He's not going to be rifling 50-yard bombs out there on the field left and right. He's a guy that I think the Bills are saying, okay, he can move the chains for us. We can trust him. He might take a few sacks from time to time. That's something that he's going to have to work on as the preseason goes on, as training camp goes on, as the regular season goes on if he wins that starting job. But there's been a lot more good than bad with McCarron's game so far.
Who do you think is the biggest pressure if A.J. McCarron's got the biggest competition? Who is that? Is it Josh Allen? Is it somebody else on that roster?
I think it's definitely Josh Allen. That's no knock against Nathan Peterman because Peterman's had a few good practices too here since the start of training camp. But Allen, when he's out there, you see the arm strength. You see that there are passes that he can make that McCarron and Peterman simply can't, that most quarterbacks simply can't. He just has a special arm on him. So I could see the Bills saying, okay, if he's head and shoulders above the other guys in the preseason, maybe he's the guy that they would say, let's go Week 1 and give him a shot, let him learn on the fly. That said, going back to what I said earlier, I do think the Bills want to bring him along slowly. I think the Bills have a very tough schedule early on this year, and they might say, Allen has a lot of arm talent. There's a lot there to like, but we would be throwing him into the fire here early on where we could bring McCarron in, a guy who, again, doesn't have a ton of experience in the NFL, but he has some, and he's definitely been through the ropes with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think he might handle that pressure of those defenses a little bit better early on in the season. So I think that if there was a quarterback, it'd be Josh Allen. But like I said, gut feeling, I do think McCarron starts week 1 for Buffalo.
You know, that has to be a jump when we talk about playing at Wyoming and then going to the NFL. And not saying that, you know, Wyoming's bad football, but, I mean, it's not where the NFL is. And being accustomed to the speed, I'm not trying to take shots at Josh Allen, but, I mean, that has to be a major jump from where he played college ball to where he is in the NFL now.
Oh, sure. I think anyone would agree with that. You know, the Mountain West is not the same thing as the NFL. It's not the same thing, obviously, as the SEC in college. So there will be an adjustment period in terms of seeing things, seeing progressions, making reads. The one good thing, though, is obviously, you know, the Bills aren't necessarily stacked at wide receiver or things like that, but he obviously has more talent to work with in the NFL, where at Wyoming, he probably didn't have a lot of playmakers with him where, yeah, he has LaShawn McCoy in the backfield. He has Charles Clay. He has Kelvin Benjamin. He has a few other guys here and there sprinkled in. So that's one thing that can help with Josh Allen's development. But those are also guys that can help AJ McCarron if he is on the field week 1.
So you expect him, you think if he continues to maintain the consistency that he's shown in the early part of camp, you think he'll be the starting quarterback?
Yeah, you know, that's just my opinion, but I think if he continues to be as consistent as he has been, if he works a little bit on getting the ball out a little bit faster, then I see him being the week 1 starter for the Bills.
So, and this is, I guess, when you could have a talented quarterback room, there's all things. I mean, you can never have too many quarterbacks, great quarterbacks in an NFL room. So what if AJ McCarron walks in and he's the consistent winner that we have noticed here in Tuscaloosa? We're talking about the winningest quarterback in Alabama history. We're talking about a dynasty that may never be repeated, and this guy was a part of that launching pad. If he's able to win consistently, do you think he could be a long-term quarterback there? I mean, do you think there's plans that far ahead, or do you think this is eventually, regardless of what AJ does, that this is Josh Allen's team maybe in 2020, 2021?
You know, that's a great question. If he wins consistently this year, then I don't see them pulling him off the field. Most first-round quarterbacks see action as rookies, but the only instances over the last, 15, 20 years have been when there's been veteran quarterbacks that have had their teams in playoff contention. You know, Jake Locker's one guy that when I did an article recently, he didn't play as a rookie because Matt Hasselbeck had the Titans in playoff contention. If A.J. McCarron has the Bills in playoff contention this year, they're not going to pull him off the field. Now, in the offseason, they'd have an interesting decision to make because at that point they might say, okay, Josh Allen, we gave him a year to sit, to study, to learn the playbook. They would be in a really good opportunity to say one of two things. One, let's not get rid of him. You know, there's a Nick Foles situation here where why get rid of a good quarterback when you never know what's going to happen in this league? But on the other side, the other flip of the coin, they could say, okay, A.J. McCarron has proven himself this year. We picked Josh Allen number 7 overall, so we want him to be our quarterback of the future. We want him to be in the lineup next year. So let's see what we can get for him on the trade market. And I'm sure Buffalo could add some draft picks, address some needs there while giving A.J. McCarron a job to start somewhere else in this league. So, you know, long term, I don't think Buffalo has that figured out. But this year, if he's winning on the field, I don't see a situation where they would pull him. Because right now, it's from day one, actually, before this season, last year, when Brendan Beane came aboard as GM, when Sean McDermott was hired, they said, you know, we're planning to win now. We're trying to build for the future, but we want to win now as well. So if the Bills are winning now with A.J. McCarron, I don't see a situation where he would get pulled off the field.
Ryan Talbot right now joining us as we continue talking about the Buffalo Bills, where A.J. McCarron is battling for the starting quarterback job there in northern New York. NewYorkUpstate.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. Ryan Talbot covers the Buffalo Bills. Ryan, let me ask you about the offensive line. What does it look like there in Buffalo? Is it a strong unit?
You know, last year that was a position of strength. Going into the season, they had Cordy Glenn at left tackle. He was traded in the offseason, but he missed most of last year, and rookie Dean Dawkins played very well in his place. So Dawkins is still there, really solid left tackle, coming off of a very strong rookie season. They lost Richie Incognito to retirement. Incognito was an All-Pro. He was a guy that was making the Pro Bowl every year since he's come back with the Bills. So that's going to be a big loss. They're flipping Vlad DeCoste from right guard to left guard right now. He had a solid year at right guard last year. How he handles left guard is yet to be seen. They're hoping that he can fill in and replace Incognito, but that's a tall task. They lost Eric Wood at center to retirement, so now you have a battle there with Russell Bodine, previously of the Bengals, so someone that AJ McCarron clearly knows well, and Ryan Groy, who's been in a reserve role with Buffalo. And then you have John Miller at right guard. He's a guy that played very well in his second season in Buffalo. Missed a lot of last year with a nagging ankle injury. And then at right tackle, I'm guessing that Jordan Mills will hold off Marshall Newhouse. And he's been the guy that they're starting right tackle for a few seasons. So, there's a lot of question marks there. So whereas last year I would have said, oh, yeah, this is a strong offensive line. It's the kind of line you want if you're a quarterback. There are some question marks there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they mesh together in the preseason, how they mesh together early in the year, especially if McCarron's behind center, because he's going to need that protection. He's going to need that time to make his read. So the offensive line is not a strength or as strong as I would have said one season ago.
Ryan, let me ask you, when you think about Brian Daboll, we are obviously very familiar with him here in Tuscaloosa. What are the expectations for him and maybe the way that you've got a chance to get to know him?
I've been impressed with Brian Daboll early on in training camp. I think a lot of the media covering the team has been impressed with him. Seems like a very knowledgeable guy. Obviously worked under two of the greatest coaches in football, and Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. Has players moving around a lot of movement pre-snap. Creative with how he's using guys, putting Kelvin Benjamin in the slot at times, letting him use his size advantage. So there's been a lot of positives early on. Obviously, you're going to have to wait and see how it goes in the preseason and, more importantly, in the regular season with his play calling. But it's a lot different than what we saw last year with Rick Dennison. Rick Dennison kind of drew up a very, I guess generic would be the best way of saying it, very kind of predictable offense, run, pass. Not necessarily a lot of creativity there. So it's been very encouraging signs from Brian Daboll early on here in Buffalo.
Hey, just a couple of guys that were a part of this team last year, Robert Foster and Levi Wallace. Any expectations for them as we travel towards that opening game?
If you asked me today, I would tell you that Robert Foster would be on the 53-man roster. He has been a guy that's been making plays day in and day out in training camp. Really setting himself apart from a crowded wide receiver room. So if he keeps that up and he makes those plays in the preseason, I think that he can make the 53-man roster, and I think that you could see him as their number 4, number 5 wide receiver in his rookie year, and then see him move up that chart going into his second season. He's really blown me away. I did a rookie power ranking that was just going to be based on the draft class itself, but I had to throw him in there based on how impressive he's been. Levi Wallace is a guy that I really liked when the Bills signed him as an undrafted free agent. They're giving him some opportunities there. I could see him hanging on as well, just because the Bills don't have a lot of proven talent in terms of depth at cornerback. Obviously, they have Tre'Davious White, who had an outstanding rookie season. They have Vontae Davis, who is coming off of a groin injury that limited him to 5 games last year with the Colts. But after those top 2 cornerbacks, there's inexperienced players like Lafayette Pitts and Brayon Borders. So that's still any man's game in terms of hanging on for a roster spot. So they both have a chance, but right now I would say that Robert Foster has the better chance of sticking with the team this year.
Yeah, it's good. Robert Foster's a guy that was limited in this offense because of the passing attack, but you could always see the ability in Robert Foster, the speed, the size. I mean, everything he gives you looks like he could be a little bit of a surprise and maybe a big-time pickup for the Buffalo Bills. I'm really glad to see he's working out well there in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Early on, you could tell that he had a knowledge of Brian Daboll's offense, and that was helping him, but he's continued to make gains. He seems to have really good chemistry with Josh Allen when they've been in together because, Josh Allen's worked with some of the backups. He's worked with a lot of those guys. He's worked with a few of the units starting and a lot of the time on the third string. But all three quarterbacks, I think when they've targeted him, he's made really good plays for the team. So he's probably been, in terms of someone that was under the radar entering camp, the most pleasant surprise.
Well, Ryan Talbot, let me invite people to connect with you on the Twitter account. It's straight up. It's at Ryan Talbot, Talbot, Bills. If you want to follow the latest with AJ McCarron and all those moves happening there at Buffalo, at the Buffalo Bills organization. Pre-game, so you expect, I believe it's next Thursday night. Is that right? Next Thursday night?
That's correct.
And you expect AJ McCarron to get the lead there?
I do. I think in the first preseason game, they're going to hand it to him. I could see them maybe having the second one be Nathan Peterman, trying to, until they officially name a starter, maybe swapping it up a little bit. But I think the first preseason game, AJ McCarron has a great chance to be the starter for the Bills.
Well, hey, listen, I know you could probably read between the lines. Obviously, we're very biased, but you watch the guy win 36, 37 games here in Tuscaloosa and the way that he was a field general. You kind of create some biasness here in Tuscaloosa. I appreciate you spending some time with us here in Tuscaloosa. We'll continue to follow your work, and I appreciate you jumping on.
Hey, thanks again.